Before the location of the children, before the incursion of the tanks into the compound.
But Richard, maybe you...
I think I can answer all of those questions. First of all, did law enforcement know specifically where in the compound the children were located prior to the insertion of the gas? The evidence we determined was no, they did not. During the course of the insertion of the gas, there was constant watch out by the people in the vehicles, the armored vehicles, and by the people in the various observation posts, trying to determine where the children were. To the best we could determine that there was really no definitive word at any time at all as to where the children were located. Only at one point, this was at approximately 12 o'clock, right before the fire, one of the armored vehicles went fairly deeply into the building, and there's a bunker in the middle of the building. If you've seen the photographs, in fact, perhaps, what you see here is the main tower facility right here in the middle, the taller portion that you've seen before. Underneath that tower portion is a concrete bunker. What happened was that the vehicle that...
Could you stay by the microphone, please?
What we saw then during the course of our inquiry was the front side is the side facing down. Is a armored vehicle went in very closely in toward that tower area and breached a hole in there, went fairly deeply into that area and saw what they believed were a group of people inside the bunker. They believed that there were women and children. That was the first definitive word, that there were children, where the children were. Was it clear that all the children were there? No, it was not clear. The vehicle then, the armored vehicle, backs back out and pulls away as far as it can, leaving a breaching hole here in the front of the building to allow those people to depart if they wish to. The fire broke out about 4 to 5 minutes after the vehicle had pulled back, right about here. Then to answer the final part of your question, were all the children ultimately found to be located in the same place? The answer was yes. I think almost without exception, they were all found to be in the concrete bunker area. But I want to say this, and I want to say this very carefully because it's something that's disturbing to all of us, and I'm sure it'll be disturbing to all of you, is that we believe that there were approximately 15 children inside. And I say believe is because of the intensity of the fire and the small body mass of the children, that it's very difficult to determine with any preciseness how many children there were. And there could have been children in other locations that we simply were just not able to discover in all the ashes and the rubble.
A question for Mr. Dennis, I guess, or anybody else. You said there was a disagreement between the hostage negotiator and the tactical people about whether to wait or to go ahead with the operation?
No, there wasn't a disagreement in terms of the going ahead with the operation on the 19th of April, the tear gassing of the compound. The way I would describe the disagreement was that in the earlier phases of the negotiation, there were certain pressure tactics which were being employed on the Davidians with which the negotiators disagreed. It was their view that you couldn't pressure Koresh, that what he wanted was a confrontation, that he expected law enforcement to be action-oriented, to be oriented towards hardware and towards firearms, and that was the confrontation that he was inviting. So that they felt that the way to deal with Koresh was to basically pull back the hardware, to reduce the level of the confrontation insofar as the weaponry was concerned, in order to, as they put it, take power away from Koresh. Since his hold over his followers was based upon their belief that his prophecy was about to be fulfilled, to the extent that they could present a face of law enforcement or present actions that seemed less threatening, the negotiators felt that they might have a better chance of the negotiations being successful. So that was early on. Later on, as the negotiations broke down near the end of March, I think it was fairly well agreed that Koresh was not coming out, and that more aggressive action would have to be pursued.
Was there dissent to the idea that further negotiation was fruitless?
I'm sorry, that further negotiation was fruitless.
Were there negotiators?
The way in which the negotiators presented their evaluation at the time that the decision to take more aggressive action was concerned was that they did not believe that there was any substantial departures in terms of numbers that was imminent. They felt that over a longer period of time that perhaps the outcome for success, whatever that meant, looked good. But in the shorter term, they were not sanguine that they. Let me finish. They were not sanguine that that there would be a large exodus anytime soon.
Say, though, that over the long haul, that there was some prospect that further negotiation might be successful.
I think that's accurate.
I then, excuse me, to just follow up. The AG said immediately after the 19th that there was unanimous opinion that going ahead was a good idea. That proves rather misleading in light of what you just said.
It was not misleading. When you will have access to the information, you can review it for yourself, you can disagree, you can agree. That, I'm telling you what was said at the time. The negotiators did not disagree with the plan to move forward. First of all, you don't have all the details. That particular decision and that evaluation was made almost a month before the tear gas plan was executed. In that month period, not one person came out of the compound, with the exception of the two who went into the compound and were not Davidians to begin with. So when you get all the facts, then you can argue with me about, whether it's correct.
Can you describe the level of consensus among your experts on the possibility of mass suicide?
There was a substantial agreement among the experts that that was a risk, and that it was a pretty good risk. Now, as I stated in the report, the information and evidence on that was contradictory. What the FBI did was it questioned Koresh, as well as questioning those that came out of the compound about any suicide plan, etc. It was denied on numerous occasions, which is a kind of an unusual situation, I think. Usually, a suicide situation is a call for help. The person who's about to commit suicide will generally make that known. So that they were faced with opinion on the one hand and Koresh's and Schneider's and the other Davidians' declaration that suicide was against their religion. Plus, we have the fact that on April 19th, we're not sure how many of the people inside knew that in fact the place would be set on fire, whether or not they were contemplating that. So it is contradictory, as I say in the report. I'm not sure that the experts were asked whether or not to believe Koresh's statements that suicide was not planned. I don't think that was asked.
Just agree that the April 19th tear gas attack was the time to do that. Did they agree with that? Was there unanimity among the behavioral scientists?
There wasn't any, when I say behavioral scientists, I think that there were a number. I think there was one behavioral scientist not outside the FBI that, although he, I think, followed the main line of thinking insofar as negotiation strategy and so forth, recognized at that point that further negotiations were likely to be fruitless. And a number of the behavioral scientists, after the fact, also expressed the belief that further negotiations were unlikely to be fruitful. I think that most of them, there was no dissent from the plan. I think that the ones that I spoke with felt that Koresh would not come out. They felt that there would be a large core that would remain in there with him. The real issue was whether or not, if the negotiating plan had been followed more rigorously, more than 35 people might have come out. That was sort of the issue.
Why is it the directors... Two things. One, you now have the Attorney General, too, so you can address questions to any one of us. And number two, the only thing that isn't working is I'm maintaining no control of who's asking questions whatsoever. The woman in the back, I'll try to be fair. Go ahead.
I have a question about your description of your envisioned role for the crisis managers at the FBI. For several years, the military has had a program whereby they rotate their public affairs officers at private PR firms like Hill & Knowlton, Burson Marsteller to gain expertise in PR as practiced by the private sector. Do you think that type of training would be helpful for FBI crisis managers?
I wasn't suggesting, nor have I ever thought about PR training. We're really talking about much more serious matters. We're talking about capacities to save lives. Yes, sir.
There's been a discussion about the Wendy Thompson video leading to speculation in some quarters that the government either inadvertently or by design ignited the fire at the compound. The report deals with that video in some detail and dismisses that speculation. Yet it draws no conclusions on the video. It appears to show flames coming from the front of the tank. If those aren't flames, what are they? What's your conclusion on that?
We've seen the video, and obviously it raised our eyebrows and caused the same concern with us as it did with, I'm sure, any of you that have seen it. We have submitted the video for expert analysis to the to a university, a local university at the University of Maryland. I can only tell you what they've told us preliminarily, and so that this is very preliminary. First of all, as I'm sure you'll see in the report, is the vehicles were not outfitted with any type of flame-throwing capability. Secondly is that the only way that a flame could have come from the front would have been through some type of busted hydraulic line or something like that. We looked for that. We did not find that. Yet, hang on just a second, yet you still see something. I'll be the first one to concede that. You see something. We have asked the experts to take a look at it and to come back with another independent assessment, which you will get. That's forthcoming, because we only got the tape kind of late on in this whole process. The preliminary assessments are, and I want to stress preliminary, are that there were dispersal agents that were used to disperse the gas. And when I say gas, really, CS gas is not truly a gas. It's a particulate. And so that it's like a powder that falls on an area and spreads out. It takes a dispersal agent to then project it into an area. The dispersal agent used in this was a gas, carbon monoxide and something else that was heavier than air. And so what you see on the video is, instead of seeing a flame rise, which you would expect because of the heat, you see something drop. And the preliminary opinions are that that is the dispersal agent, which is, by the way, is questionable whether that's flammable, but the general consensus is it's non-flammable. And apparently that is a light, perhaps it's dust, perhaps it's a defect in terms of the way the video was taken, and it's the dispersal agent falling to the ground. Yes, sir.
Some people in R&D, military sources I've showed that video to, have told me that that's not a conventional vehicle, that it was, to use their words, jury-rigged at Fort Hood for the express mission at hand in Waco.
That's generally true.
Is that correct?
It was, it's a boom that was rigged. There were two vehicles. It was CEV, Combat Engineering Vehicle 1 and 2. CEV-1 was rigged with a boom to be able to insert gas into the second level, CEV-1 into the first level.
Were there any safety parameters and performance standards established for that vehicle before it was taken to the site?
I'm not sure how to answer your question on that one. I mean, did this boom in any way alter the vehicle's already known safety standards? Is, to the best of my knowledge, the answer to that is no. It in no way altered it.
Contributed or possibly caused an ignition source because they didn't know its performance standards.
We looked at that, and that's what we addressed in the report. We had the people take a close look at that vehicle, the very same one. We saw no problems, no indication of fire, first of all, and we saw no busted fuel lines, no change capabilities. We looked very carefully at that vehicle, and we saw nothing like that.
You don't think that was flame at the front of that tube in the video?
I don't know what it is. I have to be honest with you. At this moment, I don't know what it is.
There's other video that's taken from a... Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And let me say one more thing just to finalize that. The fire did not start at that location, and that video that you saw was taken approximately 30 to 45 minutes before the fire began, and the fire did not start at that location.
Yes.
For the Attorney General, if I may.
Ms. Reno, according to Mr. Scruggs' report, at some time prior to April 16th, you had decided against the FBI's tear gas plan. And then on the 16th, you had a meeting with FBI officials, and after that decided to go forward. Can you explain to us first why you had decided against it, and secondly, what changed your mind?
As I took each step, I had determined not to go forward with it until I satisfied myself, as I have explained previously, as to everything that I could possibly consider to avert it, and it's at the same time still succeed in getting the people to come out safely. I'd like to make a comment now, just so that you can understand the parameters in which I can discuss all of the concerns. First of all, I'm deeply grateful to the experts, to Mr. Dennis, to Mr. Noble, for all that they have done, and I appreciate their efforts more than I can tell them. I've received these reports, and I'm in the process of reviewing them very carefully. I'm also looking forward to reviewing Dr. Stone's report and Mr. Noble's report as it is complete, and to comment on additional information as it becomes available. Thus, in terms of commenting, I cannot comment fully and completely. But I think it is clear that we must all work together to address such situations for the future in terms of ensuring proper staffing, appropriate organization, the expertise in negotiation and behavioral sciences that fits the particular problem we face, the training of all concerned, both people in the field and supervisors, coordination of all the people concerned, the development of a solid and current information base as to what is happening from second to second, and an ability to make sure that that information is appropriately exchanged.
Chairman Reno, if I could ask you to address the same question I asked your assistant a little bit earlier.
I'm sorry, but I could not hear the question.
I don't allow me to repeat it. Essentially, about a week ago, Secretary Benson issued his report on the ATF's role in this, and it contains significant mea culpas. The report of the Justice Department today lacks significant mea culpas. How concerned are you about the perception of a whitewash of the Justice Department's actions in this case developing?
I'm always concerned about the perception of a whitewash, but I don't go out to seek mea culpas, and I don't go out to seek we didn't do anything wrong. I go out to seek the truth, and that's what I've tried to do here, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to seek the truth.
Reno, the report seems to, I realize you haven't read it in detail, but it certainly seems to vindicate and support the actions of the FBI. I know you were supportive of the FBI's role right from the beginning, from your first briefing and then before the House Judiciary Committee. Can you give some preliminary reaction to this report, and was this the vindication you were looking for?
I wasn't looking for vindication, and I think the FBI would share with me that we both will, that this whole event will be with us, all the agents more so than me, and for me it will be with us for the rest of our lives. I don't think any of us came to seek vindication. I think every single one of us, if we were asked, what did we want to find out what we can do to prevent this tragedy for the future. And I think they would share with me the desire to go forward and do everything we can to learn from this experience as to what can be done to prevent it in the future.
Attorney General Reno,
Were you told that negotiations might succeed in the long run, as we've been told earlier at this press conference? And if so, why didn't you wait?
We were told at the outset that negotiations were underway, and we waited and took no action and resisted action every step of the way because we wanted to make sure that negotiations, if they were possible, occurred and were successful. I made a point of making sure that the Associate Attorney General talked personally to the negotiators to make sure that at the final point when the decision was made, that they did not feel that there was further avenue for negotiation.
Attorney General Reno, at the time of your press conference, when we were all up there in conference room B, you talked about child abuse as one of the, in your fears about child abuse as one of the motivating factors in your decision. But the chronology indicates there was no evidence of child abuse during the time of the standoff. Could you comment on that?
Yes, I have commented on it before, and I will comment again. It was my understanding from what was told to me that the child abuse was ongoing. What I understand is that the Bureau believed it to be ongoing based on what they had learned previously and what they forecast was ongoing.
3 or 4 more questions, and then we're going to call it to a close.
Who in the Bureau told you that it was ongoing? Do you remember that, specifically where that information came from?
As I told you, I now understand that nobody in the Bureau told me that it was ongoing. We were briefed, and I misunderstood when I thought that there was actual evidence after February 28th of ongoing child abuse. It was represented to me, and I don't remember the specific person, that the information was available based on what had happened prior to February 21st, and based on that information, it was expected that it was ongoing.
Along the same lines, you had mentioned, and FBI Director Sessions had mentioned that that there was not, the feeling of the experts was that the Davidians would not commit suicide. We now learn that the behavior experts of the FBI had specifically in memos said that this was a very real possibility. Did you see those memos that you see quoted in this report? Were you informed of them at the time? And are you at all concerned that there might have been some misleading statements made at the time, right after the raid about that issue?
I don't think there were any misleading statements made about suicide because we talked about it, and what I talked about was the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, which was, I didn't think of it in terms of fire, I thought of it in terms of explosions. We made the best judgment we could, recognizing that we might be able to prevent it then, but if the situation continued on, there was no assurance that we could prevent it in the future when we might have less control over the situation. That issue was directly addressed.
What was the most compelling reason, in your view, for going in at that time, at that moment in this process? What finally compelled you, what fact, to go in at that time?
There was no one fact that ultimately compelled me. It was reviewing all the circumstances, the negotiation, the ability of the hostage team to be prepared, the necessity to secure the perimeter, the fact that there were dangerous people in there and that we could not walk away from it. All of those factors and those that I have previously stated were what made me approve the final decision.
Two more questions.
Didn't hear the first part of your question.
Had you correctly understood that there was no ongoing child abuse, do you think you would have allowed the standoff to continue, or would you have made the same decision to go in with the gas?
I don't know whether there was ongoing child abuse or not.
Perhaps I misunderstood you. I thought
you misunderstood me because none of us will ever know whether there was ongoing child abuse. What we did know was that there was evidence previously that based on the information the Bureau had and what the Bureau advised me of, they anticipated that it was continuing. We will never know.
Well, may I ask, did you say that you misunderstood and it was your belief that they had told you there was ongoing child abuse?
No.
No.
If you will continue to hear me, what I understood was that they had evidence of ongoing child abuse after February 28th. What they had was evidence prior to February 28th, and based on the information prior to February 28th, they continued to believe that it was ongoing. Thank you.
He expressed any reservations at all on April 18th when you told him about the impending tear gas incursion? Did he express any reservations about the safety either of the agents in the field or the safety of the people inside the compound?
The president from the outset, when he first talked with Mr. Gerson as the acting attorney general, expressed concern about the safety of all involved. When I talked to him on April the 18th, he wanted to make sure that we had carefully considered all factors, and I had advised him that we did. Thank you.
This news conference was held to release the results of a new Justice Department report detailing the way the federal government handled the standoff between law enforcement officials and residents of the Branch Davidian religious compound near Waco, Texas. Be with us.
The world can therefore seize this opportunity to fulfill the long-held promise of a new world order where brutality will go unrewarded.
Just in case you don't remember, let me jog your memory. In a church they called the Waco compound, back in April '93, 17 little children, all so helpless and so small, died a senseless death of gas and flames. How many names can you recall? 17 little children. Don't it make you wonder why? 17 little children. How could they deserve to die? Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, have we become so blind? Will 17 little children finally open up your mind? How did you sleep last night, Bill Clinton? Tell me, did you feel their pain? As 17 little children cried out and perished in the flames. Attorney General Janet Reno, I accept your offer to resign. How can you stand for law and order now when you won't answer to your crimes? 17 little children, all so helpless and so small. 17 little children. How many names can you recall? Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, 17 little children, finally open up your mind. I've heard it said the Branch Davidians only got what they deserved, yet no one seems to know what laws were broken, what was in the warrant they never served. Yesterday I sold my TV set, stopped my subscription to the Times. To me it's plain to see the media was an accomplice to these crimes. 17 little children, don't it make you wonder why? 17 little children, how could they deserve to die? Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, have we become so blind? Will 17 little children